First meeting orders are meeting rules committee. It's your roll call. We'll start, Mike, with you and work our way around. We're on the record now, so keep in mind anything you say will be recorded. Even if you say it quietly, it works well.
Mike Chadwick, internal audit.
Scott Lee, internal audit.
John Rada, Parks and Recreation.
Pete Peterson, assembly.
Bill Evans.
Will Starr.
Melody Gray Jackson.
Dick Train.
Brian Fay from Chugai Eagle River Parks Recreation Board of Supervisors.
Reed McDonald from the Harry J. McDonald Memorial Center.
Pat McCormick.
Tom Hufford.
Sharon Wild.
Senior.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Sharon Wild. Maggie Devereaux.
Thank you all for being here.
Barbara Jones, Municipal Clerk.
And there's Julia Tucker.
Julia Tucker, Assembly Council.
Good. Let's see. There's the roll call approval of agenda. Somebody.
Yeah, so moved. Just looks like old business, new business, and 3 items of presentations.
Okay. No old business, new business, McDonald Center audit. Mike, do you want to go over the audit, please, sir?
Thank you. We, during the last several weeks, we have conducted a follow-up study to our internal audit report that was issued on September 29th, 2016. Since the audit report was issued, the center's general manager, planning, and the department, meaning the Department of Parks and Recreation, have been working together to take corrective actions and address the audit findings and the Assembly's recommendations and audit compliance guidelines. In addition, the Parks and Recreation Board issued a resolution recommending terms for the continuation of the contract, and Fire Lake Arena Management also issued a similar resolution. Finally, legal has developed some draft amendment to address in part the discrepancies noted in the audit report as well as other operational matters. On our memo here, we have on page 2 meeting timelines, some of the more important meetings that have taken place and transpired since our audit was issued in September. And then on page 4, we have action taken on audit findings and recommendations. I can go through those actions if you'd like me to. Okay.
We have an hour for this meeting, so.
Okay. Our first finding was the contractor did not remit to the municipality the 2013 and 2015 net profits. At the January 9th, 2017 meeting with the Parks and Recreation Board, the general manager provided a check. The department director returned the check to the manager until the center's cash flow needs were better analyzed and understood. Finding 2 was the monthly reserve account payments have not been made timely. We found that since the audit was issued, 3 of the 4 months the payments were late. November was on time. Number 3 was regarding the annual inventory. The internal audit observed an annual inventory conducted by general manager and representatives from the department. And currently, the contract administrator is making adjustments to PeopleSoft records to match the results of the inventory. Some expenditures not approved. That was finding 4. According to the contract administrator, prior written approval was not obtained for 2016 expenditures that were not contained in the approved operations budget. Their focus has been on establishing a 2017 budget since the audit came out near the end of 2016. Similarly, on finding 5 about service contracts, their focus is on the 2017 budget. According to the center's general manager, he's not yet signed a contract for county services. Number 6, do not always comply with the contractor's subcontracting requirements. According to the contract administrator, prior written approval was not obtained for the subcontractors hired by the center in 2006. In addition, 2016. In addition, since no contracts with the subcontractors were submitted to the contract administrator, we were not able to determine if they contained the right language. Annual budget submitted late. this is really finding, our report came out near the end of 2016, so really this would address the 2018 budget for the next cycle. The 2017 budget has been going back and forth between the center and the department. The general manager submitted to the contract administrator a marketing plan, and there's been some revisions going back and forth to link the marketing plan to the proposed 2017 budget. The 2017 budget will be finalized later pending results of work sessions and possible contract amendments. The barter transaction, they're still working on that. The Flamming Board president recently contacted their accountant to determine how to properly treat the barter transactions. And the insurance requirements, they obtained the required waiver of subrogation. So they're moving forward on a lot of these recommendations. Some of these recommendations, for example, like the budget, we would expect them to submit the budget on time for the 2018 budget as it comes forward. Now we have the actions on the assembly recommendations and compliance guidelines. They were very similar to the findings, and I could go through those if you'd like me to.
If you would.
Okay. Number one.
Minutes reflect. Ms. Dabowski, you joined us, ma'am?
Yes, I'm here. I'm on the phone.
Thank you. We're glad you're there and not driving.
Well, actually, I'm on my way in.
Okay.
Driving and talking.
Be safe, Amy. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, bottom of page 7, there was Flamming Board was supposed to appoint a liaison, and that was appointed. That's Patrick McCormick, the board president. Number 2, on top of page 8, this is regarding the surpluses, and like I said, the general manager presented a check at the meeting on January 9th. The department director returned the check, stating that we need to better understand the cash flows and needs of the center. Number 3, the inventory, as I stated, the internal audit was there to observe that inventory. The contract administrator recorded the inventory, we verified the inventory, and the contract administrator provided the general manager with an updated inventory listing and the naked adjustments to PeopleSoft records. Number 3 is to provide an updated insurance binder with the subrogation. They did that, and they obtained a waiver of subrogation and listed the municipality and Eagle River Chugach Parks and Recreation as additional insured. Number 5, MOA Legal shall review any operating subcontracts. Legal and the center have not yet met. And number 6, review reserve account deposit procedures. The center's general manager and contract administrator did meet and discussed reserve account procedures in January. And we noted that the September, October, and December payments have been received late, although the November payment was received on time. The center's general manager also hired an individual to provide additional accounting support. Number 7 was regarding purchases. The Flamming Board president discussed purchases with the municipality's purchasing officer. An internal audit reviewed the center's 2016 expenditures and did not identify any unusual transactions. And number 8 was to make a formal presentation of compliance and general operating overview, and they made that presentation to the assembly on prior to December 31st. That was done on December 20th. And an additional presentation will be made to the board on January. Well, they were supposed to make a presentation to the Eagle River Chugach Parks and Recreation Board on January 31st, and they met with the board actually numerous times. Also, just as a side comment, at the direction of the Flamming Board president, the center's general manager is developing a matrix showing the contract requirements and the due dates, whether they be monthly due dates, yearly due dates, so that things can be better tracked and know when they need to meet and follow up with the contract administrator. So overall, progress has been made on a lot of these recommendations. Some things are still in progress. For example, the 2017 budget is still pending based upon that marketing proposal that was provided by the general manager. And but as I understand it, there's been good progress made on that 2017 budget, linking that marketing proposal with the budget so that they mirror each other and work together. So that's what we found, the actions taken today.
Thank you, sir. We've been joined by Assembly Member Croft. Welcome, Eric. I said that everything's on water. Moving down our agenda, presentation of Fire Lake area management marketing plan. Who's doing that?
Yeah, my name is Reed McDonald. I'm the general manager of the McDonald Center. So thank you for having us here. On behalf of my board, I'd like to first of all apologize for not making the meeting that was a couple months ago.
Ancient history.
Yeah, but I just want to let you guys know that our commitment level is. I mean, I kind of portrayed us as not caring or maybe uncommittal, but nothing could be further from the truth. We've been dedicated to providing the citizens of Eagle River quality local management to provide a safe, clean environment and to maintain great low cost of the city. So with that being said, I'd like just to state that first of all, the McDonald Center for like facilities within the municipality, and I'll go private rinks in there too, private facilities, is the best maintained and cleanest facility of its kind in the city, and that's without question. And we've taken steps now even further to make sure that it operates at a high level that our community deserves. Regarding the audit results, we are dedicated as a team to remedy both issues noted in the audit as well as improving our communication with the municipality moving forward. We realize there are areas we can perform better, and we are committed and confident we can do so. To that end, our focus is on the future and path forward, a positive path based on new marketing efforts and increased revenues, tighter accounting controls, reduced operating costs, and closer coordination and communication with their municipal representatives. So in the package you have before you, and I'll go through it here in a minute, we have submitted our initial marketing plan, which is still kind of in progress, but it's a marketing operations plan, and we tied that into our revised 2017 budget. And the plan includes the following. We got the ice component, we've got our turf component, we've got our operating costs, containment, and then our net results. So I can go through at this time the marketing operations plan. So first of all, on the ice rink side, the use of our ice time at the rink is at an all-time low, and there's many factors that go into that. Economy is one. The way the USA Hockey model of coaching goes now, a lot more kids and teams share ice, especially at a younger age. So where you had 4 teams that would each get an hour of ice or 2 per week are now sharing an hour and a half on ice all at once, playing more small area games. And with the cost of ice, it is an expensive sport to get into, so more and more teams are actually sharing ice and going and splitting half ice to save money. So we've come up with some items that would have an impact on our ice sales and hopefully generate some more use of our facility. And I'll go through them real quick, and then I'll have you guys answer. I'll answer questions after. But a Christmas holiday 3-on-3 tournament. So 10, 20 years ago, teams would practice all the way through the break. Now you hit that 2-week break, and kids give the time off. And I think I've done a similar one in the spring called the Coach Mac Cup. Highly successful, and I think I could put together another little mini tournament for youth age kids to generate some money. Winter season adult league. The other municipal rinks in town and private ones have adult leagues that run. We've never had to do that because we haven't had the ice, but lately we do have ice at pretty good times. So I'm thinking a small 4, 5, 6 team league to get started. It would run through from October to March to, again, take up some ice. We've thought of offering discount for non-prime time, which we've never had to do before, but for example, 6 a.m. sheet would be, 25% less than a prime time at 7 o'clock. I'm not sure how much that will actually result in more time, but that is a thing we're mulling over at the time. Our current ice time return policy used to be 2 weeks. Now it's 30 days, and we're going to probably move to a 60-day return policy to make those organizations, both turf and ice users, but more responsible with their sheets of ice. Some fee structure increases. We don't want to tweak these too much, but for example, our skate sharpening was probably half of what it was going for in the real world. So we brought that up to snuff, and that'll add a little bit of money to our bottom line. And we were going to look at public skate and our other areas that are in-house to see if we can maybe increase those a little bit. Our Learn to Skate program is actually very, very healthy at the moment. During the winter months, especially the TOTS program, 3 to 5 year olds, those classes fill up pretty quick, and you're limited on your number of teachers basically. So what we're going to do is, again, since we have more room to have ice, more ice is available, we're going to stack and go back to back on our TOT classes because we already have the teachers there. They just teach in their class half hour. We're going to do that, as well as implement my Learn to Play Hockey program, which I developed about 10 years ago, which is probably one of the most successful ones of all of our Learn to Skate programs. And usually I only do it in the summer months, and now we can add that into a Saturday program. And again, I think that would be highly successful. So all these things totaled up about $24,500 in revenue on the ice side. The other component is the turf component, which is new since 2012. The commitment from the soccer, football, and baseball groups has been less than projected, and that happened kind of in the fourth quarter of last year. They just started giving back tons of time, 30 days out. So we, are forced to go out and be a little more creative and see if we can generate some use on that turf. Baseball is a good one we want to go after, but we don't have any way for the kids to hit balls currently. So we do have maybe to install some netting on the lid, which actually came with the building, which we had decided not to put in because we didn't know how we were going to change the light bulbs and other things up high. But we're thinking about putting that back in. We already have it. It would be pretty inexpensive, and then we could probably market that turf to baseball where they can get it and whack the ball around, which is the biggest feedback I get from the baseball kids is, yeah, they can field, they can throw, but I won't let them bat the ball because it'll damage the interior of the building. So I think that would be one way that I can get them back in the building. Because currently Connect Baseball uses the facility once in April for 8 hours for their tryouts, and that's about it. Little Kickers soccer program, I'd already had that in the works, and they're a national outfit that takes 18 months old and up during the day, so they're renting time during the day, where typically on a Tuesday or Friday I'm not going to be renting anything because the kids are in school, and that's going to add about $30,000 to our 2017 field turf sales, which is a good thing. I've reached out to Alaska Youth Rugby. They bought about 8 hours, but they're kind of a growing thing right now. It's a growing sport. They're getting some coaches who actually know how to coach the sport, and we're going after them, and we're looking to sell another 12 hours to them in 2017, and hopefully more as we get going. It's and we'll get into the dome thing too, but I've already got some feedback from them. The fourth item is archery tag, and this is maybe a little outside the box, maybe a little trendy, but it's akin to playing dodgeball with bow and arrow, but they're padded arrows. So I've been kind of showing that around to all the kids, and I mean it looks like a hoot. It's similar to like paintball. You have the barriers, and you're shooting bow and arrows with that. So that's something. It would be definitely something we normally don't do, but it would be, you'd hire a couple guys to kind of oversee it, and that's something that would obviously work well in the summertime as well, because we have a tough time selling turf in the summertime because obviously people are outside hiking and outside fields are available on and on. So that'll be one of those things that'd be a premium price, similar to going to the the trampoline air park, and I think it's something that people would do, not only kids but adults too. So, and then just general community outreach. We've started to reach out to host multiple groups, church groups, military groups. We've got kind of database going. Military groups will call me at say, can you open up at 6 a.m. for our unit to come in and play football or ultimate frisbee? We do so. So we've been kind of getting a list and reaching out to those folks. Boy Scouts and Girl Scout troops, ultimate frisbee, I've contacted them, they're not interested, but Special Olympics, bocce ball, Challenge Alaska, dome users. We reached out to all the dome users to try and come and use their facility, obviously, and the bad thing that happened in the dome. It's been mixed. Some of them have shown interest to come out. We are kind of out of the way. We are a smaller field. We're not the dome. Our field is only 170 by 75, so it's not a regulation size field. So we're slowly getting some of those, but it hasn't been a good thing for us. Obviously a bad thing for the dome. Total in turf, we're looking at all those items about $33,000. So with a total ice and turf, we're looking at projected revenue increase of about $57,000. And I feel confident. I didn't add some of those things in, like I didn't add I know that I didn't add some of like the archery tag in there because that's something that we really need to talk about. One thing's insurance, and I actually got insurance green light on that. So that's kind of where we're at right now. With the revenue side of both the turf and the ice. The expense side, we're going to be cutting employee. We've already cut one employee position. And we're going to be cutting back a little earlier than we normally do. We normally go into a maintenance period where we it's changed, but we used to shut the building down completely and just do a 6-week maintenance program. And now with the turf going a little longer, we're able to stretch that out. So we're just going to stretch that out with less people, and that means I'll be cleaning walls like everybody else, which is no problem. We're going to cut back facility hours. Typically in the summertime, we already do. We're only open Monday through Friday, but we're going to reduce those hours as far as opening a little later in the day, and Friday night to try and sell ice or turf is a ghost town because everyone gets out of town and goes hunting or fishing or whatever they do, camping. So those things I think will help out, and obviously we cut back the facility hours. Wages will go down a little bit as well as utilities. Second component that was brought up by John Rada was when we had the expansion out there in 2012. They also put a 3,000 square foot Parks and Rec shop for all their equipment, and we only have 1 meter. So the McDonald Center has been actually paying for all the utilities, and he stepped up and he's going to pay his kind of percentage of their square footage, which should roughly be about $10,000 a year. And we talked about the monthly reserve account change going from its current 6% to 4%. So it was 4% when we did our bid for the contract in 2010, and when we got the contract back, it was 6%. So that would actually, and that's in our budget. That's considered an expense. So that'll be a little savings, about $15,000 a year. So those are the things we're kind of moving forward. And again, and I've been at this for about 20 years, and people know I'm more of an ice hockey guy, and the turf is a little more challenging for me. But with this audit that come out, I think it's a good thing. The audit came out. Obviously, it makes us focus and take a hard look at our budget, take a hard look at our marketing, and see what we can do better. That's ultimately what we want to do for you and for the people of the Eagle River. So I'm excited to move forward, and I think if there's any questions, I guess on my marketing plan, I can field those. I don't know if Pat wants to say a few things.
Some members have some questions, so let me go to them and we'll come back.
Yeah.
I've got 4 grandkids that go skating there, and they appreciate your facility. As my son-in-law tells me, it's the best facility they've skated in. The Diamond Mall, do you know they're going to shut their ice down? I was talking to Hugh Ashlock last night. They're going to take the ice rink out of there.
Oh, really?
So I don't know how that's going to impact the amount of ice available. But he tells me he definitely plans, because he used Freon for the ice. Remember when the Freon leak there?
Yep.
now 10 years ago, 15 years ago maybe.
1991,
Yeah, it's been a while. Sorry, as you get older,
Yeah.
it fades in time. But he told me last night he intends to shut that
Oh,
rate
okay.
down. So that may impact the demand for ice too.
Especially lessons, they do a lot of lessons there. It's a small little sheet, so they don't rent out too much ice time, but for our Learn to Skate program, it'd be great because people will come out. We have one of the best Learn to Skate programs in the city, so.
Just wanted to know about that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Starr, sir.
Yeah, I'll get back in the queue later, I hope, as well, but for the assembly members that are here, I wanted to bring up to speed a little bit more paperwork that's in front of you for Tuesday from our last interaction. One of the findings inside the contract was upon reporting a deficit spending, the contract for renewal for these folks automatically comes back to the assembly. So it's more than just accepting the audit, and the audit revised that you've seen me kick back. We've been working around the seams and around the clock and some nights to get a contract revised and then back in front of the planning board, as well as we need to get the assembly to reauthorize that with some contractual terms. So I'll maybe speak to the next agenda item for that reason, but there's a little bit more formality to it because it's more than just, do we agree with the audit corrections here? I think we have a little bit of other things slightly more serious than the last time we engaged this committee to hold from that perspective. So my question on the marketing plan and just sort of general communications, Reed, is how does that, in this particular example, how does your board affirm those actions? And did any of them read this before the meeting,
Yeah.
for example?
Yeah.
How do they weigh into you typically on aspects like this or performance, or what's the dynamics between you and board?
Well, I'd emailed them my market plan. This is a while back. We had a meeting late January. And at that time, they gave me their input, and then we met, and we kind of went over it, and they asked me, you know, how many of these things do they think were really viable and attainable, and those are the ones I've included in the budget that I think are attainable. So yeah, we've had some back and forth and some input from everybody.
Good. Mr. Chairman, Pat, I think, how many meetings have you had in the last year, and are you cognizant of the need for some of these programs? This might be the first marketing plan you've actually had an informality.
You know, I think that's a true statement.
Yeah.
We haven't had a formal marketing plan, and I think that's one of the good things that's come out of the fact that we've got a deficit budget.
Sure.
If there's a good thing that can come out of that, it's, I don't want to say forced, but it's required us to develop a more formal marketing plan,
Yeah.
so that we have, you know, things to look at and move forward on. But we've always talked about marketing. You know, Reed has always said, hey, I'm trying to get this in there, I'm trying to do that, I'm trying to do that, but not more formal. I know, any good manager has got a marketing plan in his head. He's got a strategic plan in his head, and I know that Reed did, but this really puts it on paper. It gives them something to pick up, because I've used them before, and once a month and take a look at it and say, geez, I'm not working on this, or I'm not doing that, or I need to get going on that if I'm going to get to where I want to be by the end of the year. So I think it's good.
Good answer. Thank you. That's all I have, Mark.
We've been joined by Mr. Bowser. Thanks for making it here safely, man.
Have both hands on the wheel.
Any other questions from Sunday members? before we continue? Anything, Andy?
Oh, the only thing I was gonna say is, do you know that the Boys and Girls Club are expanding to take over for what MyFi used to do? And I know they like to start their season sometimes a little early, so that might be another
What,
opportunity.
the boys club? I didn't hear the other part of that.
Yeah, MyFi kind of was like a defunct football team.
Oh.
Yeah, and Boys and Girls Club's actually expanding to Eagle River and the Valley for youth football. So if they, I know they start a little bit early, so it might be an opportunity. Dave Wolf, he lives out in Birchwood. He's the contact for that, so I can give you his number when we're done.
That'd be great.
I do think on the marketing plan, just to
Go ahead, sir.
based on what she's saying, the marketing plan is a dynamic plan, and we're going to revise it and add to as we get suggestions or as we develop more leads. So it's not something that this is the end of it.
It can never be static. There's always things
No,
that
it's
come
not
along.
static.
as you
It's
get
always going to be ongoing. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll take the next one if you don't
Go ahead,
have,
Jim.
Mr. Chairman, to start off. I want to move the next level of the agenda, which is what I just alluded to earlier before the conversation. And that was now that the Assembly will see to an AR presented on the addendum to the agenda. renewal of the, a reauthorization of the management contract between Fire Lake Arena Management Group and the municipality. Brian Fay sits at the end here. I also attended an AIM, which is a story in itself to read from a historical perspective, but I did it on purpose so that you can grab the tone of things and try to package it with optimism and success. So today, I wrote it yesterday and the day before, it's kind of work in progress. So I made it with the expectation this was going to happen, that the level of commitment and the resolve to be refocused in changing times is where we're at, the proactive nature of it. A gentleman that's not here, Mr. Steele, and those that have been on the body, we've walked facilities and public facilities recently relating to recreation facilities within the last couple of years. We've done Sullivan Arena, looked at their scoreboard with no lights. We've stuck to the floor. We've seen Dempsey Anderson. And it's not to criticize Mr. Rada, who's here for that, or Mr. Schutte with the department oversight, or any of the conversations. To a certain degree, we were asleep at the switch as well. We wrestled renewable dollars, and I thought we would put you, we were arguing over new tennis courts when we weren't taking care of our own. So it can move to a certain direction very, very far and very fast to a place that isn't cognizant of our overall mission. And our mission, I think, at the Assembly is the same as yours to a lot of degrees. So it does sound like a lecture, but I want to make sure you understand the similarities of not only the fiduciary responsibility, the outreach to the public, but also the stewardship of our lands and public facilities, which we all are vested in various degrees. So that said, the new question that sort of was alerted to me by Ralph DeWeer, lawyer extraordinaire, along with Mr. Falsey in the back, that's the reach out that we have to the legal department that says, hey, inside the operating agreement with your group, if this happens, then the next thing happens, which is a requirement to reauthorize. The reauthorization is twofold for me, and I'll be blunt with you, is that we have purchasing guidelines and purchasing rules, and I'm risking a little bit by putting on the record that require perhaps a fair market bidding. What's the justification for sole source versus exclusive bidding? And that we fought that fight. I'll put it bluntly, it was a little bit of a fight from that perspective a couple of years ago to say to the previous administration that there is a viable reason. Planning exists, as you'll read in my report, from 1984 on. You guys have invested in building it. Mr. Cotton appropriated back on the state level. The unique reason for sole source is because of that. The passion, the energy that we have at a local board. I can today speak to the fact that I'll defend sole source again through this go round. I will gently put on the record I'm not happy, but I have to leave in April. So if I would say it and I had the opportunity to do it, this is the last time I'll do it, I think, because it won't ever happen again. Your contract will be renewed. You're the best game in town. You're right to the facility. The question will be changed. It won't be, are there deficiencies? Are there problems? Are there abilities and needs that we can be served by somebody else better? I don't want to touch any of that again in the future. I think I want to invest myself in the process of making sure. So all of that speech said, the way we've done that is to refocus on the operating agreement. We've talked, and Pat and I, various others have talked throughout with the legal team, Brian Fay's group, various meetings, and we've resolved to certain points. And if you can dig out my AIM, I think you'll see them summarized. You don't have to read the whole thing, but basically they address the contractual requirements, and it's protocol for us not to look into the weeds of the contract. The Assembly typically sees higher level stuff. So if you want to see the contractual amendments, we have them. Ralph has them. Flammy will ultimately sign that, and I say Flammy in a loving way. It's not. I just don't like to say Fire Lake Arena Management Group all over. So the Flammy board will engage the contract administration, which currently is John Rada, overseen by Chris Schutte's department. From the hierarchy, the terms and conditions are pretty much you'd expect similar across the board. Responsibilities of reporting, revenue generation, insurance, all the things that we ask all the other operators to do. We have a history in Eagle River of using sort of subcontracted vendors. Dog mushers support our trails and parks in that regard. The Nordic Ski Club manages and contributes to our grooming of our trails. So it's not always in our particular case the best interest to use municipal labor for that. So this is a common practice and well supported by our board of directors with Brian Fay as chair. So the idea here to summarize sort of the highlight points to address not only the audit findings, but to make sure that the board understands what we're acting on Tuesday, is that, a regular progress report, benchmark and review meetings that occur on schedule between the planning board, the contract administrator, Mr. Fay's group, and those are sort of professionally prepared reports, standardized reports, cash flow analysis reports, budget to actual comparisons, things that show how your business is running from that perspective, either in a slightly delayed response, 1 month to the back. We don't particularly want to read about 2013 data. We want to read about what happened last November, December, January, so we can trend analysis. The ability for a facility marketing plan and cost control. This is awesome, Reed. You have it. We run the legislative side of government, Mr. Cotton, and those can understand the legislative branch is not driving the trucks and moving the street sweepers. We're executive restricted from telling you how to do it. Amy's got great ideas. I've got great ideas. We're all engaged in our community in various levels, so that when the dome implodes or my church yoga department is overstressed, where do we send it? Send it to the McDonald Center. So the idea that the operational control plan and the facilities marketing plan become integral to the budgets is helpful too. You touched on it in your report, Reed. I'm happy to hear that, because it does mean to say that you're going to have success in your marketing, and this is how we're going to affect the bottom line. To say it and then not reflected in your budget, I think is something that you gain a knowledge base on for that. So one of the conversations, I'm not sure your board has had a chance to decipher it, but it's important to me. I think it's important to the others on the ability to say what happens when you leave, Mr. Huffer. Where do we replace you, and how does that transition work, so that we're not so tenuous on the fact that somebody with your knowledge base or your investment or your commitment is not replaced. So the conversation I've had with Mr. McCormick is to expand your board membership from 5 of you to 7 under a prescribed mechanism. My board interactions, and Mr. Evans and those folks that interact with United Way and the boards, there's a transitional plan, there's term limits conversations, there's bylaws. It may be, a formality that you guys as a board don't feel like is necessary, but from the reach out on how we can get other members engaged and other community members ready to go. I also, through Mr. Fay and Mr. DeWeer, you'll see the contractual terms talking about a co-shared partnership with the oversight being our local board. We talk about local control, but I don't want the membership necessarily to be South Anchorage or Upper Hillside. I want our board of directors through our Parks and Rec department to pick, hey, you'd be good at it, and I would hopefully that would be a Chugach Eagle River resident, including, So that local control, I think, is preserved through that mechanism of their board suggesting and not necessarily approving. It's ultimately their planning's board, but I think the oversight and membership should be expanded to 7. The past due accounts, I'll let John step in on how that is the case. One of the early observations was, and Mr. Trainee, I'll not quote you, but it appeared initially on paper that it was a tremendous sort of financial handout. You list the $50,000 transition, the relief of the debt prior, a rental payment combination. Now, it seemed like it was a fairly substantial contribution of capital without an assurance that it was going to work. And so the assurances that it's going to work, I think, are things like marketing plans, accountability, a stronger connection between the communications. And then what I hope, and this is how I'll end my speech, is that I hope you recognize that we care about this as well. Mr. Schutte and I spoke late last night, for example. So the idea that we're sort of Eagle River Chugach all on our own, I get it. 26 years of protecting the service districts and protecting our road networks and our Parks and Rec board support and improving our local mill rates and doing what I need to do for my representation has been helpful. But we can't live in that bubble always. We have to recognize the partnerships with the Dome and that are fostered through the challenges that Mr. Steele is going to have in his district over either shutting down the ice at Dempsey Anderson, Call Reed, and run them through your program. It's a big town, but it's a small town. And so those relationships will help all of us relate without being that standoffish, we don't want to be Anchorage. I don't live in Anchorage. I live out with you folks. So that's my spiel, in addition to a couple other decisions that the Assembly will have to make as it relates to that contractual renewal. But with the sports analogy, the game has been up a little bit. The idea that the audit, I think you might, for following through the whole process, came to many meetings, has been interfaced with all that. Still, I hope with an independent flair, there was no outside influence on it. but it reaches out to what I was trying to finish my comments, is that there's many more people that care about what happens in that facility as resources available to you. And it does sound like a lecture, but purchasing, legal, advertising, website management, you don't have to expend your own budget for that. You may have to for professional accounting and prove up where the separation of powers is, but let us link to your website. Let us, help market those conversations and do that. We live in this world. This is 11 of us deciding, to a certain degree, your fate, if you will, from that perspective. I'm happy with the smiley face to go on the record today that yeah, I'll fight for it come Tuesday night. So thank you for that spiel. I hope you guys recognize it. Thanks for being involved. The last meeting we had, committee of the whole, every 11 assembly members showed up. We got a good representation here. So if we didn't care, we wouldn't be here. So that's how I'll end it. I think I hit the high notes of contractual modifications. Still something that you folks have to sign and agree to. We get that. There's certain deadlines and benchmarks that occur throughout that are that case, but it's certainly not intended to be punitive. It's supposed to be corrective solutions for the future. Thank you.
Mr. Rod, anything from you, sir, on this?
Several things. One, the audit findings, I think, were a lot of good information, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of unforeseen pitfalls, things got identified. I think the corrections I'm focused on, they're in process. I think probably significantly what we need to do is we need to have this path forward. We need to have a fresh starting point. And I think Reed and the board recognize that. I know that Brian Fay from our board has recognized it. We've met and discussed it. Having benchmark meetings, whether it be monthly, quarterly, those will absolutely be held to. I think that's one of the components that we probably dropped the ball on collectively over time. And that's just from my standpoint, not speaking for Flammy, but Brian Fay would probably chime in. We've been a little reluctant, if you will, and complacent. It's a wake-up call for us as well. I think the biggest thing is having a marketing plan, which I'm really impressed with. Reed and I have had several conversations on how that marketing plan, the operations plan, really does tie to the budget, a realistic budget. Something that's not just constructed because it looks good or sounds good or maybe should show this or that, but something, and we'll do this every month. We'll true up on the budget. We'll see the results and we'll make the modifications and we'll figure out what we did right and what we did wrong and start identifying that. The piece that Bill talked briefly about is the utilities. That is not a handout, that is an obligation we absolutely own. I was under the impression that we were separately metered. We are not. We are part of the burden for their facility. It's only right that we pay our fair share. And so I did a calculation based on a rough out. I talked to Dee about it. It's an equitable arrangement. We'll true up at the end of the year and we'll do that. That's us. We own that. The reserve account is healthy. We have approximately $400,000 in the reserve account for the facility. One of the luxuries that we have in Eagle River that we don't have in the Anchorage model is that we have the capacity within our service area to take care of problems with our capital account. In 2004, when that was voted in by the public and the community, and it served us well across the board for the last almost 14 years, if bad things happen, we can draw from that. We don't need to penalize the facility in an operating model. So I'm comfortable with going back to the 4%, which it used to be, and giving that balance. We'll still have 4% coming in. We're going to get relief on the 2%. We've got $400,000 in there. We can allocate it accordingly. We do have things that we want to get done, but we're also very well protected. So I'm comfortable with that piece. And then probably the other key, and I've already done some cost modeling based on preliminary information, but that is the cash flow mechanism. The facility operates very nicely, basically from October to March, and you have a positive. But when you get to April, May, June, July, August, September, particularly May, June, July, you see a dramatic drop in revenues. That's the nature of this business. So, one, the marketing is gonna help fill some of the voids, but at the same time, there has to be a cash flow that'll get us by. Hence, the component that, working with Ralph Ware, put that into place, so there'll be a revolving fund or a cash fund, whatever the right terminology is, and we can draw from that, with advance notice, and we'll have the advance notice because we'll do these monthly true-ups, if you will. We'll see what the cash position is, we'll see where the money's gonna be needed, and we can project that, have the funds in place. But the premise is not to draw down, not pay back. The premise is when times get good, you start putting it back in. So it's like a line of credit. You just roll with it. But the key being is that should not need to continue more than probably 18 months, because if we collectively do our job and work together, the cash reserve will grow, but the net profits for each year that we are projecting will eliminate that need, because the surplus will roll forward, and as we take care of paying it back, we'll have enough money to go ahead and move forward. And in my particular model, that will be successful by the end of 2018. So it'll all be paid back, they will roll forward based on a positive position, and hopefully that will be the end of it, and that should be something that we should all strive for. So that's my personal goal, if you will, is to make sure that we adhere to the marketing plan, we see the net results, we work cooperatively together, we true up where necessary, we have benchmarks in place. So I think this is a win-win for everybody. The audit gave us a lot to deal with, identified whatever you want to call it, problems, challenges, and even solutions. So we're at the juncture now where I'm comfortable. We have an agreement with them that will be amended. Ralph has identified those things, working with Bill and others, and I think this is a positive position for everybody.
Mr. Rod, Mr. Starr, sir.
I don't usually come back into queues separately, but Amy and I always told about how we're different, unique characteristics of Chugiak Eagle River. I'm going to go into that field just a little bit because John touched on our ability to tax ourselves and move that mill rate. I'm not going to work. You think I'm going with this, but one of the strengths that we have, of course, is our service districts, our service areas. Upper Hillside has 1 million service areas, and road board service areas. We have a combined road board service area as well as an overseeing Parks and Rec. And our community councils are healthy, and the reason they're healthy is because they engage. So what happens is that both the road board recommendations for the membership of their boards and the Parks and Rec board come from the community councils. So we have a natural, inherently built-in stewardship because those in that region are on the Parks and Rec board and can say, hey, my park is this or my park is that. I think the model works really well from a districting perspective. And I want to maybe let the meeting close, no pressure, Mr. Fay, but the other thing that's incurred here now is their board is a little bit more awakened as well. And some big players on there, previous superintendent of Chugiak State Park, manager of REI. We don't have sheep on our boards. They speak up. And so the stewardship is there as well as the oversight. So we like to close down our meetings on time, but Mr. Chairman,
we have
Mr. Fay can address the audience just for a minute.
What do you want to do then?
Mr. Fay, speak to us just for a minute.
Fay?
I don't have any questions.
And I want to
but-
hear from Mr. McCormick, the president of the board. And Amy, I want to end up with you and then Mr. Jackson.
Perfect, thanks.
Okay, you're going away in how long now?
Oh my gosh, tomorrow.
She's staying.
It's like 53 days. I'm not counting or anything.
Okay, she's staying.
I guarantee less than 12 minutes. I think that when Mr. Rotter referred to the complacency, I think that was probably a good point. Our board has, we do a whole lot of stuff, and we do a whole lot of stuff in support of the administration, but also we bring, as Bill mentioned, the needs and the concerns of the local community councils, because we're made up of community council members. It's been, this is the first time in the time that I've been on the Parks and Rec Board, which is a substantial period of time, that I've had the opportunity to meet with, not this time, but this interaction because of this audit. The first time I've been able to meet with the Flammy Board as an organization, and we've met jointly, we've met I've met in their meetings, they've come to our meetings. It's been a really good, if nothing else, formation for moving forward. Reed has put a tremendous amount of effort into the marketing plan and to looking forward and dealing with the budget that exists and what we want that to look like in the future. And so I'm extremely pleased with the progress that's been made. I'm extremely confident that moving forward, we'll be able to provide, a solid product and the financial depth that we had hoped that we could get to when we added the turf into the mix, which is a factor. The rec center operated at a deficit historically when it was an ice-only facility, and adding that turf on did a couple of things. It provided an opportunity to increase revenues, but it also taxed the experience of the folks that have been working with the ice. And so I think that they've definitely made some adjustments to what's out there and how to proceed. So I'm pleased with where things are at.
Thank you, sir. Mr. McCormick?
Thank you. I would, I'd be remiss if I didn't say something from the board's perspective, being I've got this many assembly people all together in a climate where I can talk more freely, if that's the right word. But the audit, to start with, was a wake-up call, particularly on contract management. And then with the negative year, that triggered the thing that Bill's talked about, the fact that you guys have to approve the re-award, was another wake-up call. And so that as a board and with Reed as our manager, we've tried to offer you solutions. And so the budget is a solution, and it addresses the revenue side and the expenditure side. We spent a lot of time on the expenditure side trying to say, do we really need to show these people cuts when maybe cutting isn't appropriate on this item or that item or that item? So we went through all of that and think we have developed an expenditure side of the budget that still allows us to manage this in a safe way with the proper operation and maintenance, and provide a positive atmosphere for people who want to recreate there. So that's on the revenue side. That was on the expense side. On the revenue side, the marketing plan speaks for itself. And when we brought those two together, we are submitting or have submitted a budget that is positive for 2017, $47,000. So that's the solution that we're offering for that particular item. The second item was the audit, which the audit, in my mind, really shows, we're dealing with the audit issues and addressing those. But what it really shows up is that we had a deficiency in contract management, particularly in focus on compliance. So that I have talked with Reed and have, I don't want to say directed because we don't operate that way. I've asked him to outline the contract and build me a matrix that has every contractual action item that we are responsible to the municipality. And that will be part of our monthly meeting, that matrix. But more than that, he will talk to me about that and what he's done for the first year here at least. We may not have to do that, but for the first year, me and Reed will meet on that before it ever gets to the board to say if you got everything done and if you did this, if you did that, if you looked at this, if you looked at that, right? So being that, then that becomes part of the packet to the board, but it'll also go to the Parks and Board administrative people, and it will go to Brian's group, Eagle Grove Park and Rec Board. And every third month for the first year, for 2017, we will personally meet with the Parks and Rec Board, be at their meeting, and we will go over that. So in my mind, that's the solution for the deficiencies in contract administration, and that's our second solution, all right? In the end, what I see is, even though I would never want to have an audit that might be characterized as the worst ever, I need to get that in there. Yeah, she since apologized, so she's not mad at me anymore. It wasn't a total apology. And it's fair. But anyhow, along with that, what I'm trying to say here is that even though an audit that had some deficiencies or a negative year may not be seen as a positive, in turn it has turned out to be a positive because it's required us to look more in depth at our budgets, our marketing plan, and our administration. And because of that, my sense is that we're much stronger going forward. And with that, what I would respectfully ask on behalf of the committee, the committee, our board, and Reed, is that you give us the next year. Thank you.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Well, I've never been accused of being a shrinking violet, so I tend to be tough on those that I love the most, because I expect greatness. And, I did think of the centennial audits, that one was actually worse, so. For the record, they are not the worst audit I've ever seen.
I didn't know you loved me that much.
Yeah, I know.
Let's talk about SAP.
So there have been, but, and I think I think all of us have had, learning moments, and I think this is exactly what this is, and sometimes it takes, an event like an audit, which maybe you're not used to point out where we can improve, and I've seen a couple of really good positive things come out of this. I was really critical, and I wasn't sure after the audit if I would vote to support or not. But I've attended the meetings where there was a joint meeting of both boards, and I can tell you the Parks and Rec Board in Eagle River is a very active group. It's where I cut my teeth. It was one of my first appointments. They really do scrutinize things, and they visit the locations, and they constantly are looking over people's shoulders. So there's been some great positives, and one of the biggest assets I've seen come out of this event is communication. It's people actually starting to talk to each other, and the second is plan. And it's not just a plan like, oh, we're just going to do this. They actually have built-in benchmarks. They've built in accountability for themselves. And I think with that has given me the comfort to say, we should give them another year and give them an opportunity to prove that they can do what they say they're going to do, because I think they can. I've been very impressed with the response and the proactive engagement by both the Parks and Rec Board and the Planning Board. And of course, without question, Mr. Starr and Mr. Rada have really, really spent a lot of time working through every single little issue with Mr. Fay and the Planning Board. So, there's really not much more for me to say other than that. I think to convince me that I think this is going to be successful, I was probably one of their hardest critics. I think I'm comfortable moving forward with the solution, because I think, as Reed's demonstrated, when you look at the marketing plan and the solution that they're going with to move forward, he actually has an actionable plan that I think will be successful. So I will be supporting it fully, 100% on Tuesday. And like I said, I have no expectation that they won't be successful, because I know the people involved, and I see how seriously they've taken this.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just.
Out of time. Mike, I want to thank you, before I go to Hill, I want to thank you, Mike, for doing the audit.
Thank you.
Because audits are a learning process. Sometimes they're painful, but sometimes they give us a better result. You've done a great job on that.
Thank you.
The only thing I want to make sure is that the reference item on Tuesday is not a public hearing. There's no big reason. This is why we have work sessions. We have 100 and some items on our agenda on Tuesday, so there's no need to amass or show strength and solidarity. We got you covered through the factual exchanges today. We'll deliberate amongst ourselves on Tuesday to a slight degree, but the item won't see a public testimony period. There won't be any of those opportunities, so it's really, you may not even see a formal vote, because if we stick it on what's called a consent agenda, the Southern government, no, we don't actually formally say yes or no. But so you don't have to stay in solidarity throughout. I know you're there for us, and that's just so you understand how our process works. If we submit as a formal resolution, we take action on that. You will be required to meet up with the contract administrator and the leader to sign off on the next operating agreement, no benchmarks included. If you have challenges with that, reach out with us. And Ms. Gray Jackson, you always say nice things, so keep saying them.
Final comment, Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Talk about process. I just wanted to take this opportunity, in case the Family Board doesn't know, the Municipal Audit Committee is the only committee involved with assembly members as required by code. And there are 3 assembly members, Mr. Bosky, myself, and Mr. Starr, and there are 3 folks from administration, the controller, the CFO, and the municipal manager. An assembly member has to be the chair, and Mr. Starr is the chair of that committee. And one of our responsibilities is, when we get audits, and we feel we need to have further discussion based on the findings and the recommendations, and that's what we do. So this is not the first time we've done this process. In just finished one with Anchorage Water and Wastewater Utility. But anyway, my point is, I just, I'm really proud of Mr. Starr for taking his responsibility as chair seriously, even though it's affected the area that he represents. And he's done a really fine job and working through this process, leading the rest of us through this process, along with Mr. Bosky and Mr. Ryan. And I'm really, really happy that we're about to move forward. And I really don't believe there'll be any issues on Tuesday night. And thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anything the public wants to address any items? Not seeing any. I want to close this meeting by thanking the board for being here. Thanks for working with us. It's good to see your faces. Because we know what the board is, but it's nice to put a face with this function, so thanks very much for being here. Mr. Cotton, any comments you've got, sir?
I appreciate the responsibility that you have as an assembly here. Certainly appreciate Mr. Starr's
diligence.
Bowski's depth of knowledge about our facility and the work we've done over the years. I've been on this board for 33 years, and so has Sharon and Pat. We've had two managers in 33 years. I don't remember how many years exactly John was there. So it's close to half and half. So we take a lot of pride, and the community takes a lot of pride in the facility. So we appreciate your efforts here. And I think one quote from Mr. Starr that I'm going to remember is that we're going to refocus in light of changing times. And thanks for your help and direction.
Mr. McDonald, thanks for your work. You've got a good comprehensive plan to move forward with. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This meeting's over with. Thanks for being here.